Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now.
Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. Tanner, Goose, and myself. Three guys in the home loan business that just love talking about the Minnesota Vikings, win or lose. And obviously a rough day yesterday in Green Bay for our favorite football team, and wanted to jump on and talk about it here today with Tanner. Goose and I jumped on last night and wanted to bring Tanner in today. So Tanner, we're going to turn it over to you. But just a quick reminder, if you've not yet subscribed to our channel, go ahead and do that for us. That helps us grow the channel. And by all means, leave comments or opinions on how the game went, or any thoughts that you have. And we'd love to read some of those on air as well. So Tanner, I know you rewatched the game. What did you think? And what are your takeaways going forward?
What do you got?
Yeah. I know we always do our rants and raves as part of our segment post game every single week. So as I'm talking about some of this game recap, you can just issue that as my rants this week, because I had a lot of complaining, or I have a lot of complaining to do, I should say. I like to do a game recap every week, regardless of how bad we played, I guess for my Twitter account, just to see if there's anything I catch through a second time or a third time through. And this one, I found myself, I finished it a couple hours ago, so I've calmed down a little bit, but I found myself even more upset, I think, the second time through than I did after the game yesterday. I have never been just so, excuse my language, pissed off after a loss like this. The magnitude of this game, to play a division rival, and all the talk that was going on this week from Packers fans and Jair Alexander, like, there's no way that the team didn't have notice of that in the locker room this week. And the fact that you came out and completely crapped the bed with a chance to end your big brother's season, I'm so completely like upset with this coaching staff and the players right now. Like, I just we don't deserve to be 12-4 laying an egg like that. So rewatching, obviously the block punt in the first quarter was awesome. But to be able to get, I can't remember if it was the 2 or the 3 yard line, maybe it was even the 1 yard line, but they got the ball at the 1 yard line, and you can't score. How do you not score a touchdown in that scenario? So to not capitalize on that, Austin Schlottmann goes down with an injury. We're becoming incredibly thin on the offensive line. And I get that Chris Reed has been a guard in the NFL for 8 years. He's never played a snap at center in his entire life. So we're down to our third string center. But the fact that he came into the game yesterday, and it was almost like he had never played football in his life. Like, the Vikings coaching staff had no backup plan in case Schlottmann decided to go down at any point, which happened. So we had cadence issues, which led to multiple false starts. I think Ezra Cleveland had 4 penalties yesterday, and I can't even say that all of them are on him, because nobody was on the same page. Multiple delay of game penalties, which isn't necessarily a Kirk Cousins issue, I think. He probably plays a part in it. But you guys, I'm sure, all remember the meme that's going around now of him clapping.
Though, when you're clapping like this for the ball and it's 3-2-1 and they give you an beat, how hard is it to just go timeout?
Yeah.
The Cleveland ones,
yes.
they gave him the penalty, but it looked like everybody moved on the offensive line except for the center still holding the ball. So, I don't know that you can blame Cleveland on those either. I think it was the center quarterback exchange every time.
Multiple people can partake in blame on that and not calling a timeout, but at the same time, your emergency option as a center is to be watching the play clock. They have it at the end of the field, and if you get down to 1 second, just snap the ball. Mm-hmm. So that's just another rant I have. The Keyshawn Nixon touchdown, arguably the best returner in the league this year. Why are we kicking to him?
Yeah.
Did you see to give up a play of that from the behind there? Naylor is probably supposed to stay in the gap, and he just jets off to the right, and there is this. It's probably a 10-foot hole that he had to run.
Yeah. So to give up a touchdown on a kick return is, one, already pretty unacceptable. But to two, second point of that is you should just never be kicking to a guy like Keyshawn Nixon, who's already had a pretty strong season, obviously a Pro Bowler. And he's dangerous anytime he touches the ball, so don't do that.
Kirk Cousins, real quick on that. So are you suggesting like a squib kick, or like how do you keep? It's hard to keep the ball out of the kick returner's hands.
Well,
I feel like in the NFL.
I don't think there was any like strong wind conditions yesterday. So I guess typically I know like in indoor stadiums, most kickers in the league can boot it to the back of the end zone.
So he returned that one from like mid end zone, right?
Did he?
105, I think.
Oh, it was okay. Well, props to him for bringing it out, but regardless, I guess I would do my best to either put it through or squib kick it. I think that there's no way that wasn't discussed. I feel like in meetings on the special teams unit at some point this week. But we're over it. I can't do anything about it now. If they see the Packers again, I'm sure that'll be resolved. Kirk Cousins, obviously his worst game of the season. I can't place all of the blame on him. I think going down to a third string center and losing your right tackle probably isn't a great situation for you. They blanketed JJ yesterday, and you didn't have a lot of second and third options. Looking back at some of his interceptions and throws, the one tipped ball I don't think is necessarily on him. I still don't know if I would have thrown that ball. Just rewatching the game, I saw Adam Thielen was running down the sideline. He looked like he had a step on Jair with no safety help, but I don't know if he would have had enough time to actually release that ball. But Kirk also had a couple throws throughout the game. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that should have been intercepted, that weren't. So he just didn't have a good game at all yesterday.
On that tip pass one, sorry, I saw your Twitter video, which I thought was an interesting angle or look at it. You could tell with all the height that Jair had, he just wanted to make big plays. And I think Adam had a step on him because it looked like Adam was Jair's main, I guess, responsibility on that play. But he didn't take his eyes off of Justin. Like, he wanted to jump whatever Justin was doing there. So I feel like that's got to be another thing that you're aware of is this guy's trying to make a big play on Justin. And he did look like he had a step, and it looked like Jair was locked in on Justin on that play. So if you guys don't know, Purple Post is Tanner's Twitter. He's got a couple really good breakdowns of the game yesterday. I'd go check it out because that was a video I thought was interesting to look at.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm excited.
Keep going.
No, you're good. The All-22 should be released here now within the next hour as well, so I'm excited to go back and look at that. But I realize it's easier said than done. Kirk was pressured on that play, and obviously it was tipped, so he didn't have as much time as I think most people would probably hope for. But I think in that scenario, like Jefferson was obviously his first read, and that's the guy he wanted to go to. And even Adrian Amos bid on it too, the guy that intercepted the ball. So I think that could have been a touchdown to Thielen, but what's done is done. Another huge complaint for me, Daniil Hunter and Zadarius Smith have graded out this year to be two of the top 5 edge rusher, or 2 of the top 10 edge rushers in the league this season. This is a game where we can't afford to not have you play your best, and both of them graded out as 2 of our 5 worst players per Pro Football Focus this week. Daniil Hunter had just 1 tackle, no tackles for loss, no sacks, no QB hurries, no pressures, no anything. He was completely non-existent. And rewatching the game, I don't know if I've ever been so furious with a player of his caliber. I know, Goose, I talked to you a lot about Anthony Barr. I used to tag him in a lot of stuff on videos for effort purposes.
Yeah.
Thought I'd catch him multiple times throughout the game, just jogging to a play when it's not in his direction. And that stuff just irked the hell out of me. He eventually blocked me on Twitter, which is fine. Doesn't play for the Vikings anymore. But I felt like I caught Daniil doing that multiple times yesterday. And it's just unacceptable for somebody that's trying to demand $25 million a year as an edge rusher. Like, get it together, man. I don't know if you're hurt or what. Going to his counterpart, Zadarius Smith. When you got signed on by the Vikings, your takeaway quote was, "I came here because I wanted to play the Packers twice a year." Everybody knew he was upset and salty that the Packers didn't offer him a contract to come back. Came to Minnesota, broke the team down in the huddle yesterday before the game. It looked like he was up and ready to play, and had a pretty decent first quarter. I think he stuck his nose in the backfield a couple times. I wouldn't necessarily say any tackles for loss or anything, but I think his disruption, helped our defensive line out a little bit. But after that first quarter, when our defense took a step back, he also took a step back. And I think he was kind of brought in to be a guy that can be disruptive like that and be a vocal leader when we need him to be throughout the entire game. And he just faltered from that. And I think that's a game specifically against your old team where we really needed him to be that guy yesterday, and he wasn't. So Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith, I'm extremely upset with them. And I think to capitalize everything off, I had just our coaching staff. I think their worst game of the year as well. I guess you could say Dallas would probably partake in that as well. But just the magnitude of this game, there's just no way that the players and coaches didn't know how big this was to not only them, but to us as fans. Like, this is our rival, man. And, you know, there's people across the nation as Vikings fans, they work with Packers fans. Like, nobody wants to go to work. At least make it a game. If you lose by a touchdown or 3 points and it was competitive, it is what it is. They beat us. But they spanked us.
Our losses this year, guys, have all been not just losses,
Ugly,
embarrassing. Like the vibe of the Vikings, if you're just a casual NFL viewer or fan, you have to think the Vikings are just ridiculously pathetic as a team, right? Because you've seen them Monday night against the Eagles, you saw them against the Cowboys, and you saw them yesterday. That Bills game was a noon start for us. It was just locally televised. Maybe caught the end of it or heard, saw the highlights. But for the most part, when they've been in the spotlight this year, it's been brutal. So,
yeah.
When we lose badly. But it just didn't look like the team came prepared at all yesterday. It didn't fight any adversity like we've been seeing all season, which I get, like, after you do that 11 times and you win one-score games 11 times and don't lose any of those, I realize that's not going to continuously happen. But the way of game penalties, had a scenario where we had too many men on the field, had a scenario where we didn't have enough guys on the field, and there were still 20 seconds, I think, where there was you can see guys, like if you rewatch the clip, you can see guys like Jordan Hicks, and I think even Josh Metellus was like getting ready to run in. And I mean, granted, nobody did, but that's on Ed Donatel. It's not on it is on KOC partially, but in my mind, it's his responsibility to call the defense and make sure that you have enough guys out on the field every single play. And he's just completely incompetent. Timeout.
Like, the game was on the line. It was probably over already then anyway, but you needed to stop there desperately. And
Yeah.
they gave it
So,
up every time. So.
It's very frustrating as a fan.
Tanner,
Especially
you did a
since
good job on the rants or the rants. Do you have anything to rave about yesterday, or do you just throw that one in the garbage and move on?
I will hit my one rave.
You're gonna take
not,
the
I guess,
one
what
that
you would
Goose and
think.
I won't be able to touch. So
Rewatching the game again, I actually saw somebody mention it on Twitter last night too, but Jalen Naylor, Vikings rookie receiver, had his first NFL touchdown last night. There was a penalty on the play, and he looked pretty frustrated. You can see him looking back like, do you guys just kill me on this with this penalty here? Am I not going to get this touchdown? And the ref is holding the ball, and KJ Osborne sprinted up to the ref, grabbed the ball from him, and basically it just kind of felt like a moment where he was like, dude, don't take this away from him. Like, this is his ball. And went and got the ball and gave it back to Jalen, and just congrats, man. First NFL touchdown. So that was super cool to see. I thought that was a really classy move by KJ, and I love to see that even in a moment of adversity, because I think KJ easily could have just headed back to the sideline with his head down and like, hey man, we're still down by 30. So that's
what I thought was happening. I thought Jalen Naylor was like, I don't really want to celebrate my first touchdown because we're getting crushed and I'm in on garbage time. But either way, KJ went over.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, it's tough because I do have someone else that I could use as a rave.
Go for it.
I was leaning towards KJ. So just to add on to yours, I guess KJ he was my big discussion point in the Colts game. I love his attitude. Like, it doesn't ever seem like he's out of the game. That game, the Packers Vikings game, was not over yet when I saw like JJ throwing his helmet on the sidelines and just so many players look like, oh, we're done. Like we lost. And if there's any team that shouldn't feel that way this year, it's the Vikings. So I think KJ is a huge leader in this locker room, which just blows my mind because he's so young on a team full of guys that I think would be considered more highly touted, higher paid, higher on the depth chart. KJ just is a spark plug that I think needs more opportunities in this offense. The guy that I was going to shout out though is Duke Shelley. I still think he, played a fairly good game considering everything. I think he's officially solidified the spot on the starting cornerback position. But I think he's really scrappy and has done a good job. So it's one of the few bright spots I think is Duke still seems to be playing pretty well.
Those are two good
At the
ones.
very least, to be able to come back and be like contest for a starting position, I think he's earned that at the very least.
For sure.
I'll throw out Josh Metellus. I thought you guys were going to snag that one. I think that's one of the only highlights, big play wise in the game that we had. Get the ball at the one. It would have been nice to scoop it and score because we ultimately ended up with a field goal after that little debacle there on offense. But another block punt, which I thought was awesome. Guys, it feels to me like the Vikings. I'm going to ask you guys to summarize where you think they're at here too, and where, I guess, from here on out, what does success look like the rest of the way? And I feel like the Vikings are like that old snowblower you have in the garage that you never know if it's going to start. And if it does start, it's going to be fine. But to get that thing to turn over just takes forever. And I feel like, I don't have any stats, and Tanner could probably find these for me, but it feels like when you're watching this team play, they need to get jump started. And if they get a touchdown, then they start to click, and I don't know if the confidence builds or what, but then they start to roll and they're in the game. But Tanner, you remember that Cowboys game very well. Also, we were at that, unfortunately. It was like they settled for 3, and I remember saying to you, they're going to score a lot of points today, and they never did. They never scored another point. And there's been so many drives this year that 3 and out, they look dead. The offense is nowhere to be found for an hour and a half in real time. And then they start clicking and they're fine again. And it just feels like that is this team this year. You just never know what version you're going to get. And they need a little jump start to get going. And yesterday they never got it. The Colts game, they got it at halftime. The Cowboys game, they never had it. And there's so many games throughout the year where it just took forever to get things clicking. But I don't know. That was my analogy of this team. They're just super frustrating to watch when things aren't going well. It's like they just pack it in and you don't know if things are ever going to turn around for them. So what do you guys think? What is the ceiling for this team? Maybe not even that, because any team can get hot, but what are you expecting of this team, and what's an acceptable way to finish the season in the playoffs? I don't think any of us think they're going to the Super Bowl, but what is acceptable at this point for the first year of an O'Connell-led Vikings team? Tanner,
I would say, if you can get, man, I think even one playoff win, it probably sounds like pretty low expectations considering the season we've had, but this is a new regime. It's a new coaching staff. So for him to be able to come in his first season and go 12-4 and fight all that adversity, coming back win after win and go and just at least win a playoff game, I would say that's is a successful season. But I realize that there's a lot of fans that probably have higher expectations. We do have a really talented roster, so it is pretty disappointing to not see them blow a single team on our schedule out of the water. It's just incredibly frustrating. And when you look at
one win, says Tanner. Right?
What's that?
You want one win out of this team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's a successful season. I'd like to see more, but
we're not dealing with a typical 12-4 team here, right? This is probably more like a 10-6, 9-7 team that's overachieved in close games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just looking at it like our three glaring losses against Philadelphia, Dallas, Green Bay, obviously. I don't count Detroit so much because we did play them pretty tough, I think. Uh, Justin Jefferson's non-existent in those games though. So what really hurts us, I think, is playing against teams that have really good corners because our run game's non-existent and we're not built to play catch up with anyone else on our roster except Justin Jefferson. It feels like I just feel like TJ Hawkinson's been too inconsistent this year. I really think KJ Osborne's a wide receiver 3 at best, in my opinion. I mean, I still think he's a stud, but he's a wide receiver 3. I mean, Adam Thielen's nowhere to be found this year, so it's extremely disappointing to see O'Connell come over from McVay's system, the funnest offense to watch in the league last year, and just not do better. I guess I don't. Goose, you've hit it on it multiple times already. We got 2 of the top 5 tackles in the league. We know Kirk Cousins can sling the ball. Dalvin Cook's a Pro Bowler. Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in the game. Like, there's just no reason that this team shouldn't be a top, at least, and at the very minimum, a top 10 offense. So to not see them do that this year is incredibly frustrating. And I just like to get at least one playoff win to say that this was a successful season.
Goose, what about you?
Yeah. What I was kind of thinking is I'm resetting my expectations to where I was at the beginning of the year. New coach, new GM. We've had a playoff drought, and at that point, I was thinking if we make the playoffs, it was great. I couldn't handle another non-playoff year. Although a lot of our roster is young, there's a few key spots on the roster that is not going to be here for the next year or two, and whether that's contract or age, it's just Patrick Peterson's not getting any younger. Harrison Smith, Zadarius has had a history of injuries, and you can only pay so many guys. So, I definitely didn't want to write it off as like we're just rebuilding, but I was looking for a playoff appearance. I would say where we're at now, the adjustment would be for me that we have to win a home one maybe only home playoff game. But I'm a fan, and I'm going to be a fan in the fact that, like you said, Brent, any team can get hot at the right time. Fortunately, in the playoffs, it's not like if you lose a close game, you maybe get to move on. It doesn't. If we lose by 50, then we go home just like every other team. So I'll take our team that's been battle tested and just hope they show up. And if they don't, then here's to looking for hopefully a good building season for KOC to have learned a lot of lessons. He's definitely had his fair share of positive moments as well. I think I just want to see, it's been talked about several times in the media, the culture. It's so easy to have a good culture when you're winning. Yep. And I think part of that, and being a player's coach, is like, I'm curious about how much like discipline there is with KOC. Like, I can't see him like cracking down on the guys, and maybe he does, but I'd like to see after another blowout loss if KOC has a moment of like, this isn't acceptable, this isn't to our standards, and maybe having a tough week ahead of them for practice and preparation, and maybe a little bit of a lesson on, I thought you guys were all adults to make a decision on cleats. Clearly you didn't. I saw KJ Osborne said that he practiced in his 7-stud cleats all week to break them in. Because I think AP, I've seen a couple former Vikings talk about like the cleats they wear in the NFL are not super comfortable, and you kind of have to break them in. Mm-hmm. So to pull them out at halftime or mid-game is probably not great. So KJ made it sound like he didn't really have any issues with his footing. So I think that might be another one of the things that KOC's got to crack down on. Players coach maybe says like, wear whatever you guys want, but we highly suggest this is what you're wearing. I don't want to see you sliding around all game. Like that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I think there's it looked like they were sliding around out there. Like, it looked like we were on ice skates and they knew exactly what they're doing. And Yeah, it was bad. I think for me, the 2022 Vikings going into the playoffs here in 23, they need to win a playoff game. They need to beat the Giants. And then whenever they do lose, whether it's at San Francisco or they end up having Dallas or Tampa or somebody come to them and we lose, we need to lose a game that we're in until the end. We cannot get blown out again for the third or fourth time, I guess you want to say, on the season. You made a good point, Goose. It doesn't matter if you lose by 1 or 50, you're going home. But to not show up, like, that's incredibly concerning that it happened once and then a month and a half later, it happened again. And it's always when the lights are the brightest and they're on the big stage and in prime time or, a nationwide audience. So to me, they have to win one game. We're all going to be upset if they lose in the playoffs. It's probably coming. But how they lose, to me, and how they compete is probably super important as well moving forward to next year. And I'm with Tanner. I think the team is not they probably overperformed, and there needs to be some big changes in the offseason. Year 2 is where we start to really have those expectations of, okay, we know what Donatel looked like year 1. You either came back with him again for year 2 or you moved on. We see some of these players that have aged very quickly this year, and you have a couple of drafts under your belt, then I think the expectations start to build. I know one playoff win's not going to be enough for a lot of people, but I think looking back, hindsight, if we win one and we're competitive in the second or however many games we play, I think that'll be looked at as a pretty good season for Coach O'Connell. So any closing thoughts, guys? We're looking forward to probably a week where they rest the starters. It sounds like Brian O'Neill's injury is significant, so we're going to have offensive line concerns the rest of the way out. Probably rest guys in Chicago. I guess you want to talk about New York here for a minute or two, and what to expect the second go round.
Do we think that they'll rest their starters?
I'm just thinking they might play him a half at most. But
I mean, the 2 seed is still there. It's not likely at all by any means, since San Francisco is playing Arizona.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. I feel like I'd be kind of surprised if they sat the starters on Sunday. But yeah, we can talk about New York. I am a little concerned about. I kind of just want to see them go into this final week of the season here and break Chicago's neck. Like, go beat the balls off somebody by 2 touchdowns and go into the playoffs with some confidence and don't look like a meal, I think, to the rest of the NFC teams. Like, you have to think like the Giants have got to be pretty excited about playing us. Again, I mean, we look like the weakest link of the top 4, I think, right now. So, well, yeah, I guess maybe even as somebody like Tampa Bay right now. So, because they look pretty good against Carolina yesterday. But you got to have some sort of confidence, I think, going into your first playoff game. I'm super happy it's at US Bank Stadium, but we have to find something to get us there.
I asked Goose this last night. I didn't ask you yet, Tanner. There's a scenario where the Packers play the Niners, beat the Niners. I know you don't think that's going to happen, but if they do, they then go to Philadelphia, knock off Philadelphia, and we would end up playing the Packers in the NFC Championship game if we somehow put it together for those 2 games.
Yeah.
Would you wish for that to happen, or do you want the Packers just to lose right away? Do you want them to miss the playoffs? Do you want them to lose to San Francisco? Like, there's 2 sides of that coin, because I would much rather play Dallas or Tampa at home in the divisional round than have to go to San Francisco. But we also know we don't exactly love the Green Bay Packers either. So what does Tanner say about that?
Yeah, I would like to see Detroit win next week. And I guess because I think it'd be super funny to see, because Packers fans, they're on cloud 9 today. They're talking all this crap, this smack, like, oh yeah, we beat the 12-4 Vikings, like, we're going to the Super Bowl. You guys are frauds and all this crap. And to see them, like, if they lose next week against the Lions and don't make the playoffs, it's like, well, you're sitting on the couch and we're still playing. So kiss my butt.
How many rings do you have, Tanner?
Nobody cares about something I did 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. But
I prefer them. Let's say they make the playoffs, though. They make the playoffs. They're playing the
playoffs.
Niners. Who do you want to win that game?
I want to see the Vikings play the Packers in US Bank Stadium in the NFC Championship. Give me that damn game all day.
Yeah. You sound like me last night.
all day long. I just like, even as a human being, how do you not get up for that game? Like that, every player in that locker room just has to be like, we're gonna go kick some ass.
So we would want, if that were to happen, I don't know, we'll probably get stuck on a Saturday game after the showing yesterday, but so we won't know necessarily what we want to happen. We might already be done, but we are probably going to want then the Packers to win at San Francisco, and we're probably going to want Tampa then to win. I mean, would you rather play Tampa or Dallas if there's a divisional round game? If there's a big if after yesterday, but if
I want Tampa.
I'd rather play Tampa, yeah.
So we're going to be pulling for Tampa.
Actually, I don't know. I think I'd rather play Dallas. I take that back. I'd rather play Dallas.
Wow.
Well,
you got a team that kicked your butt in your home stadium. You got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder.
Clearly, chips don't matter for the Vikings.
Yeah,
I like Tampa Bay.
Give us bulletin board material. Or
I like Tampa Bay's secondary a lot, and I feel like that's an extreme weakness for this team. We can't play catch up against somebody that has a really good secondary, which Dallas does too. But
I want no part of going outside on grass the rest of the way. Like that's always been a thing. Going back to 2009, they lost 4 games that year, and I'm like thinking last night, I think they were all on grass. So I had to look it up.
Yeah,
was it? Go ahead.
It was at Pittsburgh, at
Carolina,
at Arizona,
Chicago.
where Henderson broke his leg, and then it was at Chicago in overtime on a Devin Aromashadu double move. So
yeah,
that's where the grass thing, like, it just sticks in my mind. We do not want to play on grass. So
yeah.
Well, guys, we had the day off today. It looks like we might have another day off tomorrow with the blizzard. So stay safe, everybody. If you've not yet subscribed to our channel, we'd love to have you do that. Throw in some comments what you're thinking. What's the absolute expectation for the Vikings now at 12-4? Who do you want to play? And I guess, do you want the Packers to beat the Niners if that comes to happen, or do you want them out of the playoffs? So throw it in the comments, hit subscribe. Let us know if you've got any takes on the game, and we'll be back again probably later this week. Thanks, everybody.